right. I have here with me today my good friend Josh. He's also a great musician, plays drums, sings, guitar, harmonica, probably some other things. We play in a band together as well called the Healing Collective. And I have him here to talk about the new Michael Kiwanuka album. What's happening, Josh?
Wow. This is so much fun. I'm so excited.
Thank you. Thank you. Josh is a sweetie pie. I call him Joshy Poo sometimes, Joshy Washy. I almost want, can I make that can I say featuring Joshy Poo? Can that be your name
Please.
in the
Yeah.
in the thing? I was in the description.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Pet names only.
No, but Josh is a good guy to have here for this because he's actually been a Michael Kiwanuka fan longer than me. I discovered him in 2019 with his album Kiwanuka, which is his last name, and I love that album. But that was my introduction to him. What's your history with Michael Kiwanuka?
Actually, I didn't even realize until you mentioned. I was like, oh, like the first one we really talked about was Kiwanuka.
That was my first. Yeah, we talked about that album a bunch.
Well, we can get to that because
Yeah.
that's got some bangers on it. But no, actually, I had to go back and figure out when this was, but it was like 2013, 2014. I saw this video. It was him just playing acoustic on a porch in like Austin, Texas, with someone playing the saw, like musical saw.
Okay.
Where you play like on an actual saw with a violin bow.
Yeah. Wait, is he from Austin?
No, he's from the UK.
Oh, that's right.
But
Okay.
I don't know if he was there for like Austin City Limits or something like that. But he was on someone's porch.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And he played this song called No More Running, which I actually realized is not on Spotify anymore. It was
really?
for a minute, like on some soundtrack for a movie.
It's on YouTube or something.
And gorgeous. I mean, and that's what hooked me. I'm like, who is this random guy, like angelic voice? It something about it, like he just touched my soul. I'm like, this is the kind of music that I resonate with. And then when I heard his album, the first album, some of the songs that hit me, I mean, it was this mix of like a James Taylor kind of acoustic like focus, but with the soul and like jazz influence, and which morphed like throughout these albums, which is really cool because
That is a good way to describe his music, I think, in general. Yeah, that is kind of like that.
And he actually, Love and Hate, the one album, he actually talked about that switch that he made, because he was like, I was someone like a black man wanting to play country music, and he was like, it didn't fly, And so the one song that a Black Man in a White World was where he talks about that, like I just wanted to play country music, like acoustic, and that was like his talking about that struggle, like finding himself,
Oh, wow.
I mean, the title of the track says it all, but yeah, like I started seeing that, like the Bill Withers influences, and
Yes, it is like Bill Withers. Yeah, if you're not familiar with him, this is soulful music, and it is like Bill Withers. That's a good comparison as well, I would say.
yeah, like the best kind of comparison you can put him up
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
throughout his albums, like he also, I don't know if this was like Danger Mouse is like also,
Yeah,
like,
I was going to bring that up, that Danger Mouse produced this whole album. And I didn't, that's cool that you already knew that, because I was going to bring it up. I know him specifically in the hip-hop realm, mostly. So I was kind of surprised he did this, but he does have a groovy vibe to his hip-hop production. I don't know if you know, but he's done production for MF Doom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. The Mouse and the Mask.
and Black Thought.
He did the whole album with
recently
Black
was-
Thought, Cheat Codes. I love that
Yeah.
album. Black Thought
Yeah.
is the main rapper from The Roots, if you're not familiar. He did an album with Danger Mouse, and so I love that album. And he actually did a mashup album that was the Black album by Jay-Z and the White album by the Beatles mashed up. Like he produced, he took
wow.
pieces
I
from
have
each
not
and like
heard
mashed
that,
it
I
up.
don't think.
Yeah, so I actually have it on vinyl because Ty loved that, and he had it on vinyl. And shout out to Ty. It's actually his
Wow.
birthday today as we're recording this, November 30th. Ty's birthday.
Wow.
Shout out to Ty. Love you, buddy. But he owned the Gray album by Danger Mouse, and so that was my introduction to him. But I looked through his catalog, and he has worked with people outside of hip hop, like Norah Jones and even Jack White and Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. So yeah, it was cool when I saw him on production on this. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Well, I actually looked back because, like, there were definitely some songs where, like, I noticed his influence. Like, when we'll talk about different songs, but I didn't realize he started with him, like, second album. He
Is that true?
he did
Wow, I didn't know.
he transitioned from, it was this like small oh gosh, what was the first? I'm trying to remember. His first album was produced somewhere in the UK, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the second album was the original producer plus, Danger Mouse. And so I think there was like this transition into more of this like big sound, like the Marvin Gaye kind of like orchestral, like backing with like his voice, just like, I think
it transitioned from more acoustic style into what we're getting on this album, and probably the last album too had a lot more full sound. Kiwanuka is, I mean, that album's amazing. You Ain't the Problem, that song, go listen to that song. That's probably my favorite. It's probably still my favorite song.
We talked about that.
He's got a lot more not a lot more upbeat songs on that, but he has more of a variety on that album, I would say, than this new one. It felt like he kind of took the chill vibes from Kiwanuka and made like a full album out of this new one called Small Changes. But you want to get into the first track? Because the first track, Floating Parade, has the bass line hit me immediately.
Yeah.
The bass lines on this new album are so good. They are so awesome. They are tight, in the pocket, grooves. I would say Floating Parade and The Rest of Me. The Rest of Me have the best bass lines. But the bass is nice throughout. It's great throughout the whole album. Yeah.
And I immediately was like, all right, bass just like pops through every single song.
Yep.
And so I had to know like who was playing bass. And I'm like, and I realized that Pino Palladino was the bass player on that album, I believe, if not every song, like most of it. And I had actually,
why do I know that name?
So he has played actually on a mix of like a lot of different jazz albums, but a lot of neo soul too. Like he played with, and this all made sense because I'm like, D'Angelo. If you like John Mayer Trio is kind of more of like.
D'Angelo though,
but
that
D'Angelo,
makes sense.
Jill Scott,
that sounds like wow.
RH Factor,
cool.
which has like Badu and D'Angelo. And, that's like a super group.
This does sound like D'Angelo kind of vibes with the bass lines. Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, I love D'Angelo stuff.
He's on my top. Like, I don't know, he's way up there for me too. Yeah. So it all made sense when I saw that. And then the other name that came up was Jimmy Jams playing Hammond. All the organs, most of the organs on the album.
A lot of good organ on this. Yeah. I did hear a lot of good organ. Specifically, Lowdown Part 1 had some really nice organ on it. And I thought a lot of cool guitar on this, too.
Yeah.
While I'm talking about Lowdown, I'll just get into it. Lowdown Part 1 has great organ, like you're mentioning, but the fuzzy guitar tone that he's got on that.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of reminded me, and I'm going to be comparing him to like old classic rock stuff for the next couple tracks, but that's what I heard. It reminded me of George Harrison's style of guitar sound, that fuzziness to it. But Lowdown Part 1 and 2 are a couple of my favorite tracks on this, and I thought Lowdown Part 2 sounds like Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Straight up Pink Floyd. Okay. Did you hear it too?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I didn't say it when we talked the last time, because I'm like, I want you to say it.
Immediately I was like, wait, what is going on? And I mean, the David Gilmour style bends, it was like, this is Pink Floyd.
And then the orchestra behind it too had that full sound,
the ominous like humming synth in the background. Like, I was half expecting to hear a voice come through and say, "Remember when you were young, shine like the sun." I mean, I
Yeah.
actually went back and listened to "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" and "Time" by Pink Floyd and was like, "This is what it sounds
That's
like."
what I was wondering.
Yeah.
What Pink Floyd songs are
Fi-
first to pop in your head?
If you
on that?
I got the timestamps, 5 to
Okay.
6 minutes into "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" is sounds like this, and then about 4 minutes 10 seconds in "Time," it sounds like this song too. Yeah, I actually kind of went back and had a little
Yeah.
fun with this.
Well, you know, it's funny too. On Lowdown Part 1, I thought it was interesting. There were subtle things that reminded me of the Beatles. Some of them were
Yeah,
super
that's why I said
simple.
George Harrison,
I
that
mean, it
fuzzy
was
guitar.
yeah. You mentioned that, and then also Ringo type beats, just
Okay.
really simple.
Yeah.
Like the fills are very much like Ringo
Yeah,
on
I
that,
could hear
and
that.
then how they transition to. I'm a sucker for a part 1, part 2. You know, just like
Yeah.
two songs. The way they transition.
Yeah. But no lyrics on part 2. It was
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
and that's what made it even more Pink Floydish. I was like, whoa. I mean, it's great. It's not exactly Pink Floyd, but I can hear a little bit of the influence, and that's a great song. I mean, Lowdown Part 1, Part 2 are a couple of my favorites on this. We can jump back up to because we talked about the first track, Floating Parade, and then it
Yeah.
goes on to Small Changes and One and Only. And what's hilarious right now is I'm looking at your notebook and there's nothing written for those songs. And that's because I actually really, and I mean, you, what I mean to say is you might be feeling the same way as me, that I felt that these songs were boring and they didn't do a whole lot for me.
Yeah, it
These
wasn't a lot going on.
Small Changes had a decent guitar solo, and I mean, like, it's a good vibe, but it didn't do anything for me special. And yeah, One
Yeah.
and Only is nice, and I think might contribute to maybe the concept of the album a little bit, but it's pretty boring. Not much happens. I have not much to say about those two songs, to be
I
honest.
don't either.
Yeah.
And that's so
Yeah.
funny that you noticed that.
I was looking
'Cause
at
I
your
was
notebook
hoping
and I'm
maybe
like,
you
there's
would have
nothing written for
something
those.
to share. But you know what's interesting when you talk about like the theme of the album, I actually, one thing we mentioned is that lyrically he's on the simpler side. There's not and early on I think of like his early albums were, and I use these words because this is the way he described like his writing it was more like these prayers, affirmation type, lyrics. And when you think about like, I go back to his first album, and ones that hit me. I'm Getting Ready. I'm not a religious person. We've talked plenty about spirituality and religion and things like that, but he's someone that I'm willing to bend for, when it comes to like some of these prayer type songs, that, but also like things about like his parents, like the way, or at least his mom. He talks about his mom a lot in songs and things that she said to him. And No More Running is one. It's a beautiful song, and you have to look up a video of it on YouTube to find it because it's not on Spotify. But this album, he said that obviously, and they had the music first, which I thought was interesting. And then this is like during COVID, he was having this like existential kind of like, finding himself, like he like all of us, in lockdown was kind of like was trying to figure out, who he was, what he was able to do like outside of music. And he realized that like he wasn't much of a writer. Like he said, the people he looked up to and he was influenced by were people who would like, talk about, different poets, or, I mean, he was talking about Ginsberg and, your Bob Dylans of the world, who are these excellent like storytellers.
Yeah, he doesn't quite have that in his lyricism,
And that's why I thought it was cool that he was like, one thing I forced myself to do during COVID was to sit down and just write. He was like, he said it was really hard for him. Like that wasn't one of his things, which I thought was interesting for him because I I mean, I don't hear a lot more
No,
on this
there's
album, but
the lyrical content is kind of vague, I would say, throughout this. But he did share the concept behind the song "Floating Parades" that I think might be kind of a theme. I'm gonna give you what I interpreted from this. But the quote he says, this is him saying, "The song itself is loosely written about utilizing your senses to find an escape, particularly in oppressive circumstances, whether spiritually or physically." The floating parade is the metaphorical movement of taking yourself out of an uncomfortable situation and seeking comfort elsewhere, driven almost solely by the power of the mind. And that
wow.
kind of feels like the theme of the album a little bit in some different ways. Like find an escape from your negative thoughts, and maybe his dreams are the floating parade. You know, because
Mm.
he says follow your dreams is kind of about breaking out of that negative
Yeah.
headspace as well. And I think love helps him escape too. He's expressing his love and devotion to someone, uh, with one and only, and stay
Yeah.
by my side, and the rest of me. Gorgeous songs, expressing his love towards somebody, and he's moving from a dark place to a lighter place, and this person is helping him do that. I mean, lyrics on this are like, "Back when I was lost, stumbling round, you found me. Now I can see you." Or now I can see, fighting through the pain, no longer remain in that darker place, lead me to the light. Um, so I think somebody was helping him through that, and then his dreams were doing that, getting
Mm.
out of this negative headspace. But the last song, 4 Long Years, sounds like things ended. I mean, he's kind of saying it's a shame, and whoever this person was that he's talking about, sounds like they ended things. And so it's kind of interesting. And I kind of thought, well, maybe it's cyclical like that, and that's part of the theme. But that was my
Yeah.
interpretation of the theme of the album. There's not a lot of lyrical content there, though, so
Yeah.
I could be kind of, speculating a little bit, but that's what
Yeah.
I got from it.
I'm with you right there. That only thing that I heard from him that I thought was cool, and a couple of songs touched on it. One that I'm actually excited to talk about right after the little blank spaces and notes. We get to
Oh,
Rebel
yeah.
Soul,
Ooh, man. Yeah, that
and
picked it back up for me after those two
yeah,
sleepers. Yeah, Rebel Soul is great.
and one thing he talked about, he said on several different songs, that he was talking about this childlike mentality of how we live life and how we take risks, and Rebel Soul was like his biggest, the time where he kind of touched on this the most. And I mean, it even starts off with that like haunting, dark, type
Yeah.
sound. I wanted to ask you about this, but he said that he pulled a lot from Portishead. Remember
Oh,
Portishead?
okay. Yeah, I could hear that. I could hear that. Yeah, Portishead
Um,
is kind of like this, yeah, more vibey, almost, yeah, ambient something. But I could hear that from the piano line, which I was going to mention. The piano line is
yeah.
nice.
And then it
And then
drops
that,
down right there. I like
yeah,
when it does get
yeah,
darker too.
it does.
There's
It does. And there's that kind of like haunting, like, tell me are you moving up. That was stuck in my head. Tell me are you moving up.
yeah.
That got stuck in my head. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. Well, it was cool to hear. Like, I love to hear what influences people. And in this particular one, he was like, and I can't remember the lead singer in what her
Portishead?
name is, Portishead.
I can't remember.
But he was like, what would she sing on this? Basically, is what
Interesting.
his
Okay.
approach. And I
Wow,
mean,
that's
his
cool.
his I love hearing you really hear the range of his voice on this one.
Yeah.
And I feel like his first album was way more like upbeat, happy. Like I said, there's affirmations, and then he does get um, into that type of mood, at times, which I love. Like I love hearing the darker side, the like more haunting like vocals from him.
Yeah, there were some haunting backing vocals on here. And to lead right in, we talked about Lowdown, so we're gonna go to Follow Your Dreams, which had those kind of vocals too.
Yeah.
I would also say "Stay by My Side" had those "Stay by My Side" and those "Whoa" in the
Oh
background, like
yeah.
kind of some very haunting vocals. Yeah,
I
that's the only way
love,
to
yeah, was
backing
it the
vocals.
end of Stay by My Side where he really is just
Yeah,
vocalizing?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I love like hearing his voice is powerful. I will say, like, and I think, and I don't, it's a mixture of like producers and himself, like his own journey, like
yeah,
realizing like the power in his voice. And when you add more like the orchestra, and
yeah.
I thought it was cool. Actually, there's way more like key driven type music
Uh
than
huh.
his early stuff was very much just like
Yeah.
acoustic guitar, and then the keys
Yes.
orchestra like that. He's got the voice like to like
To go with that
pierce through
soul.
that, like, and his
Yeah.
focus more on like the melodies like get you. And
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like, and while you're talking about keys, I skipped around a little bit, but "Follow Your Dreams," the keys on that
yeah,
intro are so cool and
the synthes
kind of give me
sound.
Stevie Wonder vibes a little bit with the
Oh,
percussion and everything too. Like
okay.
this, the pace picked up a little bit. You know, not that the the pace doesn't pick up a lot on this album, but it this one kind of
Yeah,
did, and the percussion was cool. Yeah, that synthy key. I don't know. It
yeah,
kind of it reminded me of like some Stevie Wonder stuff. I was getting those kind of vibes from it,
yeah.
which I like that.
And I
That was one of my
also,
favorites on the album. Is "Follow Your Dreams." I think that's an awesome song.
yeah,
Yeah.
I also felt like I did hear kind of that influence from Danger Mouse on that one a little bit more too.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
this, the synth part of it, I think, is a
Yeah.
different sound for Kiwanuka.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I like to kind of hear what his voice sounds on like
Yeah.
different tracks.
Yeah. I mean, the production on this is super lush and gorgeous and just a vibe. Yeah, it really is.
It is, yeah. It's a
Um,
good rainy day album too.
Yeah.
I noticed
Yeah.
the other day I was driving around and just like listening to a couple more, and we don't have a lot of overcast days in Florida,
I like
but
that.
I was like, this is a perfect
Yeah.
album for
I like
that.
when you can say an album is a rainy day album. I like that you can say it because I have a list too. Maybe that'll be a podcast episode. Our favorite rainy day albums.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
good. I mean,
Um,
that's one thing, Lee, that I love about like when you share music, and I think you keep keep us all like the power of sharing music with each other is an amazing thing, and we're lucky to share that together, like playing music, making music together, but also like in certain, like a Sunday morning kind of like
yeah.
album, or like an album
Dinner
that,
time.
yeah, that has that kind of
Getting out of work. You know,
right,
I like some angrier stuff.
I
I like
have
some
to hear.
angrier stuff for that typically. But and then I get home and we get jazzier for dinner time, and that's something I learned from my parents too. So, they always tried to match the music to the moment of what you're in, and like
Absolutely.
meet the feeling of it, which I loved. But I don't have much. I kind of talked about The Rest of Me. The bass line's cool. Live for Your Love. I don't have much to say about. And I kind of
Yeah.
mentioned 4 Long Years. Kind of a boring song to me as well, to be honest. But it sounded like the things that he was in love with, that person he was in love with, sounded like it ended. So that's what. It's kind of an interesting ending. It almost made me feel like that's why it was like a cyclical thing.
Yeah.
But that's. Do you have any other
One,
thoughts on the specific tracks, or do
well,
you want to talk
I will
about
say
it generally?
The Rest of Me, like the intro to that was a little bit of a return to his roots. The
Yeah.
acoustic guitar was like pretty
he
much
did
the only
start with that.
time you hear acoustic straight up on
Yeah,
the album. But
that's
then
true.
he goes right into that electric road sound,
Oh man, yeah.
which I did love.
The Rest of Me is a
Um,
very good song. That's a good one. Yeah.
But then 4 Long Years, that was a lot more of that, like his original sound as well.
Okay.
And I feel like the melody does shine through. I don't necessarily know, the full meaning of it, if it's like a relationship, or
Yeah.
part of me did kind of wonder if it would still went with the theme of like the old him, like
Uh-huh.
being, I mean, the last album, let's see, Kiwanuka, was that
2019.
It was
So
okay.
5 years,
So
5 years ago.
so I also kind of thought because he talked about like his own like existential crisis. Like that's probably putting a little bit more like I don't know dramatic, but like
I guess he.
finding himself.
I guess I wish he kind of described that more on
Yeah.
this. Like it's pretty vague. Like I can hear it, but it's not quite descriptive. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was my and so for general thoughts on this album, unless you want to touch on any of the songs again real quick. But my general thoughts on this is I kind of have a love and hate relationship. Reference to the old album. Sorry, he has an album called Love and Hate. That's a joke, stupid one. But okay. But what I love about it is I love the vibe. I love the sound of it. But what bothers me and my only gripe about it is that he doesn't deviate away from that groove, that tempo, that rhythm very much. And I feel like the last album, Kiwanuka, had distinctive, noticeable, pronounced guitar riffs, more range in the rhythm and tempo. And he just didn't do a lot of that on this one. But I still love it. Like, you can put this album on. It's great to have on. It's a vibe. Have people over, put it on. You know, it's a great rainy day as well.
Yeah.
I would say even in the morning, it's a nice one. But, you know, so many times, like my specific example is Follow Your Dreams. You know, he starts with that Stevie Wonder synthy keyboard. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And he just falls right back into the same groove. If you listen to it, the keys stop.
Yeah.
And then it goes right back into the slow kind of, which it's beautiful. But that's my only gripe is I kind of wanted a little more variety maybe. Because Kiwanuka, you know, and maybe I'm just not as familiar with his older stuff. Maybe this is just how he does it. But the last album, Kiwanuka gave you so much more. I mean, the rock and the more upbeat songs are probably my favorite on the Kiwanuka.
Yeah.
Like, You Ain't the Problem, Rollin', Hero. All those songs jam.
Yeah.
And I was like, where are the jams on this?
That was going to be one of my main, like, talking points was like the drastic difference between Kiwanuka, and he actually touched on this, which I thought was interesting. He he said that Kiwanuka album, he felt like he had something to prove, like his range and like
interesting. Okay.
What range he had, and it makes complete sense because you think like You Ain't the Problem, like the lyric, the rhythm of his lyrics. Like, please, like listen to that album.
Go listen to that album.
If you
go listen to Kiwanuka,
figure out what your opinion is.
Yeah.
If you need like a stripped down kind of folky, soulful sound, go back to his first album.
And I mean, listen, this is a great album too. I'm not dissing on this album. I just, you know, he doesn't give you a lot of variety as much as he did on Kiwanuka.
Yeah.
Kiwanuka, those rock songs are so good.
Yeah, the Marvin Gaye in him comes out with the percussion, with the the orchestra behind him and some of those things, and then like that the lead guitar that rips, that.
Yeah.
That
I do like the guitar solos on this album though quite a bit, man, and he gives you a different range of tones, and I do like the guitar work on this album, but
No, but you're right. Like,
but go back and listen to Kiwanuka, and listen to this one too. I mean, this is a good album. And he's just a great artist in general. So I'm glad that we got together to talk about him. Man, this was fun. Do you have any final thoughts or anything? Or?
Just that I think you're the best. I'm lucky to have amazing friends like you. But
I love you
because you keep me honest when we get into music, and I love hearing like the good and the bad, and because you've kept me honest when I've had reactions about groups or songs or whatever.
Are you talking about Pink Floyd?
Yeah, actually, I was wondering if you'd bring that up.
Yeah, Josh.
Don't roast me.
No, it's cool. Josh didn't know Pink Floyd. I had to show him. I had to be like, no, they're cool. And I showed him "Shine on You Crazy Diamond," and he was "What the heck? There's saxophone in this and everything." I'm like, "Oh my god, yeah, dude." Pink Floyd goes all over the place with their music. It's amazing. Anyways, but I almost brought it up because I could hear some Pink Floyd influence on this album.
Oh, big time.
For sure.
And that was actually
especially
the part that I loved the most.
Yeah. Those oh my God, those David Gilmour bends. Let's go out on a David Gilmour bend. What do you think?
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. listening. This is Lee's listening. With Joshy Poo. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll have Josh back again for another review as well. But thank you, Josh. Much love to you, bro.
Oh, love you too.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.